All right, thank you all. All right, I'm going to get started. So I'm going to pass over my hosting duties to my co-hosts. I wanted to welcome, I'm first going to start with a few housekeeping things. So first I want to welcome our ASL interpreters, Rosalie Vasseurs and Sarah Vargo. I have spotlighted Rosalie and Sarah, so they will remain on the screen. You can change back to gallery view in the top right-hand side or pin a speaker of your choice. You can access our live transcript by otter.ai in two ways. Located within your Zoom tools, you will find Hide Subtitle, View Full Transcript, and Subtitle settings. Here you can follow along with the live transcript, turn on and off the transcripts, and adjust how they look. Additionally, in your top left-hand screen, you will see a Live on Otter.ai drop-down menu that will give you access to view the streaming link in a new window. Please keep your video and microphone off. You are encouraged to ask questions in the chat feature during each presentation. Welcome to the 2020-2021 Accessible Media Production Virtual Capstone Showcase. My name is Jennifer Curry-Yonke, and I am the Accessible Media Production Program Coordinator. Today we have gathered virtually and come together from all over Ontario, and I believe from across Canada and parts of the United States. So welcome. I want to begin first with our land acknowledgement. Mohawk College derives its name from the Mohawk Nation, one of the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. The Confederacy marks a union of peace and friendship, and Mohawk College honors that union by recognizing the 6 nations of the Grand River and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We acknowledge that the territories on which Mohawk College and its campuses are situated are governed by the Between the Lakes Treaty, the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement, and Upper Canada Treaty Agreement. These agreements are binding to this day and represent our mutual commitment to maintaining healthy, reciprocal, and respectful relationships with the many Indigenous nations and people of this area. We acknowledge this and iterate our dedication to inclusivity, to friendship, and to valuing the ongoing contributions of Indigenous peoples and communities. We recognize that disability rates in the Indigenous community are higher, and we strive to recognize the intersectionality and importance of indigeneity, disability, and accessibility in our work. Please take a moment to consider the land you are situated on. Tonight, we welcome our 4th cohort of graduate students and our first to complete the graduate certificate fully online. I want to start off by saying how impressed I am with our students. Despite the unprecedented circumstances we find ourselves in these days, our students have risen above the challenges to produce outstanding work and support our industry collaborations. Tonight, we will see the results of their 8-month applied research projects. Before we begin, M. Williamson, Supervisor of Media Accessibility at Accessible Media Inc., a member of our Program Advisory Committee, and this year a Capstone Project industry partner, will provide a welcome message.
On behalf of AMI, I'd like to welcome you to the 2021 Capstone Showcase and wish the students good luck with their presentations tonight. I'm M. Williams, Supervisor of Media Accessibility for AMI TV. Over the past several years, I've been invited to be a guest speaker for Mohawk's Media Accessibility Production Program. AMI has also hosted student tours at our Toronto office, and it's always a pleasure to be involved. I'm a member of the Program Advisory Committee, and I've witnessed the program flourish and the dedicated students produce great work. As an industry partner, I've had the chance to see the effort that goes into the capstone projects from last fall through to this spring. The highlight for me was attending the virtual user testing and hearing folks share candidly about their challenges accessing media. It was very interesting. For tonight, enjoy the presentations, and I hope you'll consider joining as an industry partner next year. And to the students, congratulations on your great work. On behalf of AMI,
Now I saw in chat some people said somebody said they couldn't hear M. Is that? I just want to make sure. I think it's okay. That was good. Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you very much, M, for joining us. M and AMI are both huge supporters of our program and students. Now, just a few things before we get to the students. Earlier this year, Mohawk presented the 7th Annual Celebration of Learning Awards to recognize the outstanding contributions and achievements of current Mohawk students. Our own Ryan Joslin received the Applied Research Award of Excellence for his work on the Canadian Internet Registry Association grant titled Websites for All, the Inclusive Web Project. Congratulations, Ryan. This year, our faculty and students chose our program nomination for the Outstanding Achievement Award. This award will be awarded to graduates who achieve distinction in every segment of college life and demonstrate traits which set an example for fellow students. Recipients will have maintained a high academic standing and will have proven community involvement and extracurricular activities that contributed to the enhancement of college program and community life.
Jennifer, you're muted.
Not sure what happened there. This year, our faculty and students chose our program nomination for Outstanding Achievement Award. This award is awarded to graduates who achieve distinction in every segment of college life and demonstrate traits which set an example for fellow students. Recipients will have maintained a high academic standing and will have proven community involvement and extracurricular activities that contributed to the enhancement of college program and community life. Our accessible media production nomination, which if selected as the winner at convocation, goes to Kristen Momertz. Congratulations, Kristen. We hope you win. This year was a first for many things. We had the largest cohort of amazing students, incredible industry partners for our capstone projects and experiential learning opportunities. Thank you all. We learned to effectively teach, learn, and build community fully online. And we successfully held 3 evenings of virtual end user testing with 20 members of the disability community, conducting over 70 individual testing opportunities. And we engaged in amazing learning opportunities with our alumni, guest lecturers, and speakers from all over North America. If you would like to learn more about the Accessible Media Production Graduate Certificate Program, either as a student or as an industry partner, please visit our website at mohawkcollege.ca/390. We have 2 information sessions coming up, one on May 27th at 7 p.m. and June 22nd at 12 noon. You can also connect with me at jennifer.yonke, JAHNKE, at mohawkcollege.ca. The rest of our evening is dedicated to our students and their industry partners. Over the next 2.5 hours, our students will introduce their industry partner, identify their problem statement, share with you the research they have conducted, and showcase where they currently are in putting together their final accessible media solution. There will be a few minutes after each presentation for the student to take questions and comments as well. If our industry partners are here and want to say anything, this will be a good opportunity. Our faculty and our returning students will take turns moderating the sessions. I welcome our first moderator, faculty Adam Spencer.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and it's a pleasure to be here with everyone. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce our first student, Kevin Wu. Kevin, over to you.